Well, folks, another week, another video. No red boiler shit going on today. And this is not a Ferguson video. I would, however, like to make a lathe video at some point, but that's not for this week either. This week, I'm sitting chilling on my swivel chair because I have to take you outside to show you a purchase. I went onto Facebook Marketplace and found the bargain of the century. And I am very thankful to, let's say, the older generation who actually looked after stuff. For I have just bought a Pennie clubman trailer tent. Yeah, I know this isn't everybody's cup of tea, but it just screams the 80s. It's got brown curtains. Yeah. There is not a broken stitch on the seats. There is not any cracked windows, damage, the lino, the carpet. It's immaculate. Whenever I got this trailer home, I basically shook the person's hand the minute I got into the yard and went, yep, I'll take it. Plugged it into the Jeep. This thing's been sitting in a shed. I plugged it into the Jeep and all the lights work. I have a trailer in the yard and all the lights don't work. So all the lights work straight away. Handbrake works. The hitch is nice and sliding drawbar hitch. Everything's perfect. And you can see now there has been repairs made in a few wee small areas the size of a matchbox on the roof with proper patch repairs. I mean stitched with fabric, the whole lot. So this thing has been well looked after. And there's two kids in the house that want to go camping on it, and they've had their dinner on it last night. And of course, whenever I got home, I picked this up at 10 o'clock at night and then proceeded to build it. So at 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm sitting there all excited. Everybody was in bed and there was nobody to show it to. But again, this is why the page is called Midnight Fabricator, because that's the hours whenever I work. But I am very, very, very pleased with how good this is for the budget of which I allowed. Because for the money I paid for this, I couldn't buy a pop-up tent. Never mind a tow behind 6-berth caravan tent with a kitchen, a sink, cooker, cupboards, seats, a table, the whole lot. It's even got an awning. The awning's fantastic. And the previous owner has went to the bother of getting, I want to call it a tarp, but it's like a heavier fabric for the floor and the awning with an underlay fabric that sort of softens the blow a wee bit. I would imagine you're going to be on stones or something. But there's no point in me sitting in a swivel chair in the middle of the workshop telling you about it. I'm going to go out and I'm going to show you it. But because of the state of my garage today and the way I have this positioned, the trailer tent is kind of blocking my door. So this is not graceful. So I'm going to go out, climb through my little tunnel, and I'm going to show you the trailer tent. For this, I'm pleased. I'm pleased. There's a few things I have to make, like tent pegs, and I have to put on a couple of bits of paracord, because whenever we get to site, I want to be able to pin it down. And I want to be able to go away this weekend, and hopefully the kids will enjoy themselves. So I'll take you and I'll show you what we've got.
I never realised how difficult it is to try and show somebody something that's up close with selfie. So I'm going to walk backwards. This is the awning for a Pennie Clubman trailer tent. Let's see, I'll go backwards and through here. This thing is immaculate. I don't know, they must have just taken really good care of it. This thing was bought in 1985. So in a plastic container inside the main trailer, whenever I opened this up, we had a nice, neatly folded and ironed pile of curtains. There's curtains for the awning with a purpose built wee on clip up at the top. You just clip on and clip off. It came with wee gadgets like the shoe rack, and then we have this collapsible table. We bought the 2 chairs there yesterday. But if you look down at the floor, there was a massive tarp undersheet with, it's a type of cloth fabric waterproof membrane thing on the underside of it that leaves the ground soft, doesn't damage the plastic if you're on gravel, and then you put the plastic over the top of it, and this leaves this whole area perfectly dry. There is no leaks whatsoever, there is no tears whatsoever. It's not even sun bleached. I don't think it was half used. Now I went through, there was a wee bit of I thought it was staining, but it was probably damp with sitting, and I gave them a wee clean. All the windows are fine, none of them are damaged in any way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to walk backwards into the camper. So we have obviously the wee half door down at the bottom here, which I've jammed with the table. But if you go up in without falling, straight behind you we have this wee kitchen, and then beside that you have a big double bed. Around this side you have another double bed, and if you look very closely, Misty's right about here. She's loving life. The lino on the carpet is immaculate. There's not a thing wrong with it. There's not a rip, nor tear, nor stain, nor cigarette burn, nor... the whole thing's class. Now when I get this off Facebook Marketplace, I thought it was just the trailer. I didn't realise it came with the awning, curtains, boxes, everything's with it that came with it new. So the family that were telling it on Facebook, in my honest opinion, I think they were basically gifting it to somebody that would make use of it. It's probably a bit dated for most people. But with 2 young kids and a 6 berth trailer tent, guess what's going to the next vintage really. The only issue I have is we had quite the rain shower yesterday, and there's one wee spot up on the roof there somewhere where I'm going to try, or I did try, this rather poor waterproofing spray, but I have since seen that B&Q do a waterproofing spray, and hopefully tomorrow it'll stay dry. And I have a few areas photographed so that whenever I go out tomorrow, if it is dry, I'll be able to, because you can't see from the top, it's just all one colour. I'm going to spray the affected area with a proper coat of stuff, and that should stop. It's not even leaking, it's like hemorrhaging water just down through the membrane. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to stitch this one wee patch up on the side here, and I went to steel suppliers up the road from me there, and I bought a length of probably 6 or 8 mil rod because there's no tent pegs. So I'm going to take you through on me fixing a few bits on my new camper, and then I am going to hopefully be able to tow this behind the Ferguson, probably not on the first occasion, but we'll take this to the show. And if I'm only parking the tractor beside it, or if we're staying at a camping show or a show where the tractor's going to be at, to have this for the kids instead of having to go and drive all the way home, this would be fantastic. But I don't mind that it's dated. I'm same age as me, so I can't say too much. The cat seems to like it. So we're going to hand stitch a bit of cotton fabric, and hopefully I'll get a burst to B&Q and we'll get the stuff for the roof. And then I'm going to go through and try and see if I can make a few improvements, like tent pegs, paracord to pull down the corners, and go from there. So, wish me luck. As you can see, I'm getting a wee bit too caught up in the nostalgia of being in a 1985, what's this, a trailer tent. I'm using a torch that's magnetically stuck to the ceiling for my garage, and a perfectly good telly lamp, an oil lamp, so why not use them? The reason I'm out in the garage is because the one thing I'm missing, the one thing I don't have, is there's lashing points on, well, the 4 corners plus the 2 highest points, and I have a full roll of paracord for reasons we're not going to go into, but I measured it out, worked out how much I'd have, and added about another 3 foot. And what we have is a nice little loop, and then I've used a wee piece of heat shrink to tie in the tail end, and then that locates into, well, the awning has 3 spikes coming up through the ceiling, so it'll locate into the spikes, and then I can lash into a tent peg. Didn't have any tent pegs. So I drove up the road today, and I bought a bit of steel, made myself some tent pegs. So I'm going to show you the wee jig that I have for them. That's out in the garage.
because I cut the length of bar that I got in half and done a few different trial designs. I think there's one somewhere with a bit of shrink wrap on it, but it's a tent peg. It's not rocket science. I think they're all about 8 inches long, and it's really, the kids are going to be saying this. I don't want this thing flapping about. It'll either keep them awake or possibly scare them. So the best I can lash this down so it doesn't wag about in the middle of the night, the better. And I think a tilly lamp, although this is not the video I intended to do tonight, tilly lamp would be more suitable for what I'm doing. So set you there, and I'll get the finger burner. So every time I light this thing, it burns the fingers off me. But it's methylated spirits, and there's a wee burner inside of it. And the idea behind it is you take that wee boy there, clear your fingers liberally in methylated spirits so you set yourself on fire. Like that. Oof. And then basically all that's doing is it sort of preheats the mantle. And trust me, if you don't have that, you have great difficulty getting this thing to light. This was a birthday present to me one year. I seen it at an antiques fair and had to have it, so I did restore it to an extent, but it still needs a little bit of heat. I think they all need a little bit of heat. But I'm very impatient. So although I'm letting it work its magic, I tend not to let it work its magic for long enough. Yep, I'll just wait another second. So what I have been doing with the power cord is I've measured out the length that I need. I basically measured out what I needed and added a bit extra. And I am simply putting that into a loop, and then I'm folding it back on itself in a knot. Of course, when you go to show that, you always mess it up. But what you end up with is this tail. I don't like this tail. I think that's just something that would get caught and get... Oh, she's starting to light up. Woo! Maybe not. Gently does it. Oh, there we're away. That's a bit better. Put the hot metal back into the flammable liquid. So, as I was saying, I don't like this wee tail because I think it's just bad looking. So what I'll do is I'll shorten this one a wee bit by bringing that up that way. Tie a bit of a better knot, or attempt to at least. How did this go from a Ferguson page to I'm sitting tying knots with a tilly lamp and a trailer tent? Anyway, there we have far better loop. And the idea behind that loop is you always want to have a loop at least one end, because then you could either do a trucker's hitch, or with the awning there's 3 spikes that actually come up through eyelets, so I can just slot that straight down onto it and I can do a trucker's hitch from the other end. But I have shrink wrap, full box of it. So I take one of these conveniently sized pieces of shrink wrap, put it on from the other end, and then what I have then is the option of putting the tail inside the shrink wrap and bringing it down till there's nothing left. Now that is, it's a wee bit close to the end, and I would rather have it stopping about halfway up in that so that it's never going to come out. So just take my wee boil here, and I know you can probably see nothing what I'm doing here, but what I end up with then is the wee tail is about halfway inside the shrink wrap, a nice tight eyelet on that end, and a conveniently spaced oil lamp that has the retro heat gun, because if I use that, I don't have to run and look for my snap-on blowtorch, because this is sitting here. There is another advantage to the Tilly oil lamp though. At this moment in time, according to my thermometer, it is 15 degrees outside and it is 17 degrees inside. The heat, the sheer heat that comes off that, will be enough to warm up this whole area. And don't worry, there is a carbon monoxide alarm screwed onto the side of the kitchen now, because I fully intend to use both this and the old propane heater. Don't appear to have it plumbed up yet, but there you have, nicely heat shrunk, and the wee tail's up in there, and then there's the eyelet. And what I'll do is I'll wrap them all up nice and neat, and I'll find myself a wee carrier bag or a container. I'll put them all into it, so that whenever I go camping, I'm not going to be worrying about that flapping about in the wind. Put that back through, pull it tight. There you go. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, just 2 more to make. Put the wee heat guard back onto the bottom of this boy here. He goes onto the bottom of the Tilly lamp, and I have no idea what he's for, but he looks cool. So there we have my Tilly lamp up and going. I'm going to set him here. I'm going to set him out of the way, and I am going to go through and tie another one of these. But before I tie another one, I need 6 in total, and I have 4, so that's only 5. So before I put a loop in the end of this one, to give me a measurement for the next one, I'm just going to copy it. There we go. There we go. Well, there's a lip in that one and all. This wee thing is one of the handiest bits of kit I have ever carried in my life. There you go. So there, this one's done and all, so that means I've only 1 more to do. So that'll give me 6, and then I'll probably through that roll. These seats have storage in below them, so I'll probably through that roll. I can maybe do without the shrink wrap. Throw that roll under the seat, and then should the occasion arise where I need to tie anything else down, a roll of paracord is a very handy thing to have, especially camping. You want to tie up something to hang up some clothes to dry or something, but it's definitely something that would be handy. And dip that in, roll the end. That melts the end of it, stops it from fraying. As you can see, I have far too much time on my hands, and a very, very, very understanding partner. But and handy loop. Make the wee eyelet. There, it's nice and tight. Find the other end. Now that it's not frayed, it's easy fed on. And again, you can see, I don't like the fact that they're both the same length. I'm sure it'd be perfectly fine, but what I am going to do is cut that wee boy off, tuck them up in there, and use the heat coming out the top of the oil lamp. Wonder if that any warmer. Considerably. Oh my goodness, the heat coming out of that's nearly burning it. Not bad. So that's it, all heat shrunk, ready to go. And again, oh, that's warm. Again, just wrap it up. That way they don't get all tangled, because no my luck, I'd get to site and I'd go to put this onto the tent and it would be all tangled up. Right, put that through there. Making a mess of this. And you go. Pull it tight. There we go. There is the 6 lashings made up and all. So what I'll do now is I'm going to go make a cup of tea and then I'm going to go out to the garage because I don't know how many of these I'm actually going to need because I have a tarp out the front for the awning and we have a few different lashing points that I haven't had a good look at or haven't took her out. I would rather be looking at an excessive amount of tent pegs and not need them than only have half of what I actually need. So I went and bought a length of steel that must be 8 or 10 foot. We cut it in half with an iron worker, threw it in the bed of the pickup, brought it home. I'm cutting them into a size that I think is tent peg size. And I'm putting a wee bend on them. But I want to show you the wee jig that a man showed me and he actually let me make in his workshop years ago. That is the perfect tool for putting the little kink onto the end of them. And believe it or not, that's actually quite hard to do. If you do it in a vise, it never bends over at enough of a steep of an angle. You end up with a 90-degree fold, but you don't end up with a nice radius either. So I'm going to go make a cup of tea, and then I'm going to take these out to the workshop. And then once I finish that, I'm going to check to see what the temperature difference is in here, because the heat that's coming out of that, obviously, fire risk. But there's a fire extinguisher over there. Hopefully we don't need it. So, tin of boost, cup of tea, and go to the garage. So we're back in the garage, and I would say nearly every garage in the country has one of these. I have actually 2. One's broke, and I've held on to it for years. And then I was working down at a friend's one night, giving him a hand, and discovered he had one that wasn't running right. And we done a bit of a deal, and I ended up being able to bring it home, taking all the parts off mine that worked, and putting it onto this. This is an indispensable piece of kit. It's fantastic. It's just a wee simple bandsaw, but very, very useful because it's also a horizontal bandsaw. And I put wheels on it, which is the best upgrade I ever done. It has a very crap switch. Now it works. And for the length of time I've had it like that, I don't see me fixing that anytime soon. But I can basically come along here and just I don't know about you, but that's a lot quieter than a grinder. I did go through with a tape measure and marked every 8 inches because that was the mystical number I came up with. It is a bit terrifying at times, but I've seen on Adam Savage's page another man, Past Max, he made a wee table for that. I don't use this style enough to justify making a table for it where I'd have to take it off and on. I literally use it for cutting stock. But there's a part of me would like to make one just for the sake of making it. There we go. And that leaves me with a nice wee stack. And I'm going to go over and I'm going to grind them. You don't need to have to sit and watch that. And once I have the ends are a wee bit sharp. And yes, they're going to be tent pegs, but I don't want them to be sharp to pull out. So I'll grind them on the bench grinder, and then we'll do a wee run on this to show you how it works. So because of the angle of the camera and the wonderful lighting in here, this isn't going to be easy to show you without zooming you in, but I'll give you a wide angle shot. So basically, that's the wee rods there. I've just ground off the ends, cut them to roughly 8 inches. They're tent pegs, not something for a rocket ship. But just mark them at 1 inch, roughly. So eyeball that at 1 inch, and then what I want to do is I want to set that against this wee centre column pin. So the wee centre pin, I have the white mark against it, and then I ground that next bit round to it, locates on that bottom pin. So I've just jammed it in there, but I want the white mark against this centre pivot. And then what I do is I bring that boy down. With this, I have to put my foot on it, or it'll spin. And I just bring that boy round. Oh. Okay, I think it looks like a tent peg. Now, quite a steep angle of approach on that, but the idea behind that is I'm not that concerned that they're maybe not that consistent. There is a way of marking it, that you bring them all around to the same mark. I'm going to eyeball it. They're tent pegs. So that was version number 1. That's version number 2. Version number 1 will still work as a tent peg, but I want a wee bit more of a shallower angle, because that's just right out rounding itself. But I can eyeball the rest of them, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the camera down in somehow. Let's see if I just move this across. Bring you up. Ooh. Bring you right in. I'm using a couple of plastic containers as my camera stand. So let's see now. If I take you in just the slightest wee hair, I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. So I'm sure there's an easier way to mark 1 inch. What width is that? 1.5 inches. I'll mark 1 inch on the side of this. And then I don't have to fondle about with this tape measure every time. So I can set that against here, give me a rough marking. Inch. So what we're doing here is white mark against that wee bar, cantilever it round, and set that boy on like that. And then what you have is that makes contact with the back face, but this face is jammed against that wee locating pin. Bend it round. There you go. So again, mark it at 1 inch using the pre-made mark. This pole popping off wasn't really the best design, but lift that up, set it on the mark. Again, I'm only doing this roughly. Take that boy back down, bring it around. Tent peg. So every time, this tends to be a repetitive job, but I'm just doing out whatever length of bar that I bought today. And as I said before, I would rather be looking at the tent pegs than looking for them. Sometimes they just pop off because I didn't line it up right. But if this was a more precise job or something that had to be consistent, what I tend to do is I'll actually tack on a wee stub here. So when I bring the arm round, I can only go that far. And that leaves all of them consistent. Which does help, look at that for a mark, which does help with keeping the consistency. But I thought it was an interesting wee jig, and the man that showed me that one time was making up hundreds, and I mean hundreds, of little bars. He must have had a contract for somebody for making these small parts, and I just stood and bent them wee bars all day, every day. But I thought it was quite an interesting wee gadget, so I'd said to him, could I make one? And he basically just lifted a few bits of scrap out of the bin and showed me what way he originally made it. And it's amazing how those wee tools stay in your workshop, and whenever you need them, you know they're there. Let's see. There. So that's the last of the bar all made up, and I have a wee bit down here. Wee bit of exhaust pipe that sticks into. And then just leave that wee boy down. He lies in round the wheel at the bottom. So what have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 tent pegs. Technically 15 because of a failed attempt at the start that would still work. So 15 tent pegs. That might not even be enough, but it's enough for now. So let's go see what temperature the inside of the cabin is. You can feel the heat. Get a shot. I am fully aware you can't see a thing, so oh, that's definitely warmer. Right, tent pegs and paracord all in a bag. So it's 14.2 degrees outside. It is 19.1 inside. Now, the danger heater and a telly or an oil lamp are not the way to heat one of these things. But I definitely think I'm going to take it with me. If not, just for the nostalgia, because to be honest with you, it'll be a nice memory of having silly things like oil lamps when you're away camping with the kids. This is definitely not the video I intended to make this week, but I definitely wasn't going to get near the tractor, and once this came up on Facebook and I knew I was going to get it, I had to get home. The minute I got home with it, I had to build it. Now, I want to pick it up at 10 o'clock at night, so it was the middle of the night whenever it was fully built up. Speaking of the middle of the night, it's 2:05 in the morning. I think I'm going to call it a night, but I was planning on doing a lot more. There is a few other wee bits. I've ordered patches. I have a wee patch to go on there, and they're actually an iron-on patch, which I've never seen before. So it must heat up the glue and then you iron it on. That's going to be a challenge. But I have done all I can do in the time period I have. But the paracord tie downs and the tent pegs are going to come into their own whenever we take this away, hopefully this weekend. And kids are off for summer. Me and the missus are going to go away and try and let the Waynes experience what it's like. They're not at an age yet where they realise just how 80s everything looks. They've been having great fun. In fact, they spent all day in it today playing pirate ships, whatever that is. I know fine well they're going to have a great time, and I know fine well this isn't everybody's cup of tea. But not only is this for the kids, but I intend to fully take this either on the back of the Ferguson or on the back of the car to the next steam rally and to the next tractor show and pop this thing up and get the kids into it, and we have somewhere to have tea and somewhere to enjoy ourselves and sit down and have a cup or have our dinner. Because the last couple of shows we've went to, we've either had to leave early or we haven't had the facilities to. I can't afford a 10 grand caravan, so like something like this is more than adequate for 2 kids and 2 adults to have a bit of fun, make a few memories. And I just thought it would be worthwhile showing these because I was looking at them online and there doesn't seem to be many of these about. as I say, it was made or bought in 1985. Everything's here. Curtains are here. Seat covers are immaculate. Floor's immaculate. I'm going to go through this thing with a fine tooth comb and try and leave it and keep it in the condition it should be in, because it'd be nice to take and it'd be nice to have at shows. And realistically, if it's not going to look the part at an old vintage show, where's it going to look the part at? But we hopefully get away with it this weekend. Might be a few pictures or a few wee snippets in next week's video. Next week's video is not going to be about a trailer tent. But thank you very much. Didn't do that very well. Thank you very much for coming along and seeing my new purchase. And hopefully next week it'll maybe be something that might interest you a wee bit better. But good night.